I think it's terribly important to insist on individual values.
Learning Culture Podcast.
Initiative, creation, all these things which we value. It's now possible to make organizations on a larger scale than was ever possible before.
Learning Culture Podcast.
Teach people to analyze the kind of things that are said to them.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Learning Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Barry, and joining me this week is Jo Wright. Jo is the firecracker CEO of Coaching Culture. It's a UK-based firm that specializes in the content and platforms to enable cultures of coaching, or as Jo puts it, to scale up coaching conversations. I initially approached Jo on LinkedIn because I saw something on her website that I thought I disagreed with. And I thought it would be fun to get into a conversation about the sort of battle between our two viewpoints. The more I read what she was posting and the more I dug into the website, the more I realized that we actually were on exactly the same page. We're on the page of learning culture and coaching culture, and these are all just different names for the same thing. And I think that's the most exciting part of this for me. It's about enabling authentic leaders to have effective conversations by giving each other honest feedback and building cultures of trust. Those four things are on Jo's website for Coaching Culture and are 100% part of what they offer to clients and what they demonstrate and act out in their own company. Jo talks about coaching as a way to win hearts and minds, and I think it's a fantastic starting point for this conversation. And from there, we dive into how to do this at an organizational level. We talk about how coaching mindset is more important than coaching knowledge and skills, how it's important to get leadership buy-in for this to be successful, how there's a top-down and bottom-up meeting in the middle that takes place in successful coaching cultures, and the important role that managers in that middle play in ensuring a culture of coaching. We talk about the importance of asking great questions, and we spend a lot of time on the topic of feedback and how to use the 5-to-1 ratio and an attitude of unconditional positive regard to ensure that coaching conversations are as effective as they can be. I took so many notes from this conversation. I'm sure you will too. So please sit back and enjoy my conversation with Jo Wright. Jo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much for inviting me along. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while now, and you are such a great thinker and feeler, and we'll talk about what I mean by that as we get more into this, I think, around coaching. And coaching is such an important topic for anybody who's trying to build a culture of coaching, culture of learning. You have a business called Coaching Culture. We just spent a little bit of time now talking about it, and I want to start to unpack some of this, but I'm curious to start this off, like what gap did you see in the market? Why did you think this was necessary to start a business around this?
Yeah, great question. So I did a coaching qualification. I'd always been a leader and manager that coached my teams. I didn't always know that's what it was, but I knew I recognized early in my career about the power of great questions, the power of caring for your teams, being human with your teams, listening, realizing that they've got way better answers than I ever would. So there was so many learnings throughout my career, I became a change manager on a change program, but it was the people side of change rather than the systems. And I recognise that people don't just change when you say, right, change. Time to change. You go change. It's time to change. It doesn't happen like that. It just doesn't. And I started thinking, wow, this is fascinating. People are being told this is the direction we're going in as a business. This was a number of years ago. And they're just not doing it. Yeah. What's stopping them? So I started getting quiet. And I recognised that my role as the change manager was to go and have conversations with people and kind of move them along the journey of where we were heading. And it was conversations in groups, it was conversations in individuals, and it was coaching conversations. And that's what I would call winning hearts and minds in a change program. And I started recognizing the power of doing that rather than just telling people what to do and then expecting them to just go off and do it. So I always knew I was going to do a coaching qualification. I thought, oh, I've got to take this to another level. I've got to really understand the psychology of what's going on here. So I did a coaching qualification, and it was a total hallelujah epiphany moment. It was like, not only was I coached along the way, I was learning how to coach. And I often say it was life-changing, which, you know, my current business partners often say, no, that sounds so dramatic, but it was absolutely. And I'll never forget the moment where actually the penny dropped, that actually it was about self-belief. It was about me and all these sort of things. And I love to share the story of when that actually happened. And I went on this coaching qualification, and then I'd been made redundant out of the blue in my career, and I was like, what? This is the first time. I'm 44 years old. I've been a good employee and leader, you know. So I was totally shocked, and I kind of dropped to my knees a little bit. But my coaching qualification allowed me to absolutely bounce up high, and you know, whether the stars aligned, but I then met my current business partner, and I went on a course he was running, and he was a business owner, and I was like, and then we just kept connected on Facebook, as he did with everybody who was on his course. And then one day he said he kept seeing me checking in into the local bar on Facebook, and he said, oh wow, I've moved there to the place that you live. And I was like, wow. And then I thought, hang on a minute, somebody's moved next door but one to me today. Is that you? And it was.
Oh, no ways.
So
That's crazy.
And literally he was moving in with all these business books in his arms, and then I'd gone, at this point, having gone through redundancy, I was setting myself up, self-employed, and he's like, here, have all these business books, I don't need them, I know what I'm doing here. So I sort of like took all these books away with me, and we kind of became the best of friends through talking about business, and we were both in the learning space. We were both in like understanding how people can be the best versions of themselves. So we became friends, talking over wine and beer and chatting away, and literally just as neighbours. And I'll never forget. I was kind of preaching coaching to him. I was proper on I'm doing a coaching qualification, so this is changing my life. So I was there firmly on the coaching soapbox. And I was challenging him a little bit about his business and what he was doing. And we had a great conversation. And I just started telling her the power of coaching. I was like, look, organizations are spending too much time on focusing on knowledge acquisition and skills. I said, when actually it's got to be about mindset. I said, because once you sort your mindset out, everything changes. And coaching conversations do that. And he sort of sat there, and I could see the entrepreneurial cogs whirring away in his brain. And I said, and it's criminal. I said, too many organizations are providing coaching just for their exec teams. I said, and that's wrong. That's wrong. And that's probably the gap in the market. I was like, it was so traditional. And I was like, no, I said, this needs to get out to the masses. This is so powerful. If I can say it's changed my life, how many more people can have their life changed in their career? I said, I said, and just having a conversation with one person is like sprinkling fairy dust. And he said, can you do this? Can we do this digitally? And I said, I was just about to say, no, it's a human thing. And then I just stopped and I thought, actually, let me think about this. And I went, actually, coaching's about raising self-awareness, asking great questions, raising self-awareness, and doing things differently because you've recognized it and you change your behaviors for the long term. And he was still running his business. So he's like, wow, this all sounds a great idea, but that's all it was. And then again, out of the blue, connect the dots, who knows, a couple of months later, somebody came in and bought his business from him, and we set up business a month later.
Amazing.
Developing a coaching culture business. And it's 5 years old next month.
That's incredible. Congratulations on the journey and sort of making it this far, right? That's always the hard part. So we're going to come back to, because I think it's been evolving as well, obviously, so in those 5 years. And so I think I want to come back to the business side of it, but let's just go into some of the things you mentioned, because you and I think very similarly about what people need in organizational settings to be able to learn. One of the things you said, so you sort of self-directed your own learning when you had this retrenchment, and you went out there and you sought out the coaching that, but not everyone does that, right? So let's maybe start with the individual. Why do people need coaching?
I think it's about spending that time to reflect. I think we're so busy in our lives, we just go forward, we just go do. And actually, coaching forces you to stop and think. And I think it's that stop and think, and with some powerful questions to enable that, the sparks to go in your brain to suddenly go, hang on a minute, something can be done differently, something can be done better, all sorts of things. And I think it's about that stopping and reflecting, and that's why people need coaching.
Yeah.
And it can be, it can be whoever. It does, it's not just peer to peer. It's not direct report with a line manager. It's family, it's friends. It's a life skill.
Yeah.
It's about being curious to get people to think differently, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, there's my buzzword right there, curious. I love that you brought that up, and so important to this. I was going to ask you, does it require another human on the other end of that, or can a series of really thoughtful prompts be useful for people as a sort of coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you can have a series of thoughtful prompts, and that's what we provide at Coaching Culture, as well as also having the ability to have access to human conversation. So we provide software at Coaching Culture. We're not here to eliminate, we're not taking over the world with robots or anything like that.
Yeah.
We're not eliminating the power of the human conversation, but actually prompts, questions, taking through series of coaching, self-coaching exercises can really help people, as long as they're committed to the time to think through.
Yeah.
And take that time to stop and just ask themselves, actually, why has that happened?
Yeah.
What's driven that? What is it about me? And it's really getting to understand yourself first and raising that self-awareness to be able to make those changes. And I don't think many people do that enough.
Yeah. So we had a learning summit a couple of weeks ago, and this topic came up so often, this coaching, the idea of reflection and how important that is. And then also the idea that most people are spending their entire day putting out fires and responding to emails and all that. And so they don't actually have time to do this. So I'm curious, like, what have you seen work well in organizations that somehow make space and time?
So they've made the space and time, that they've made it happen.
Just intentional,
intentional, and even coaching policies, from the very top of an organisation, say, no, look, this is what we expect of you. We expect you to stop and reflect. We expect you to think. And we don't expect you to just do every day, because you'll only get so far doing that. We can all do all day, but actually if you stop and think, something will change and be better and different the week after. So I've seen intentional practice, and that's for us what a coaching culture are about. It's about getting the whole organisation bought into taking time to think through things and do things differently, and supporting each other along the way. For me, there's when I talk about a coaching culture, I'm not just talking about questions and all that. I'm talking about building relationships. I'm talking about building trust with other people, and that then gets the job done. That gets the things done, because you're helping people along the way all the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of almost not side benefits, but intangibles that come from this activity of reflecting, doing things differently. I just want to go back to that the actual process of it. So how are you making sure that the reflection results in some sort of action afterwards, some kind of positive forward progress in whatever that person's doing?
So at Coaching Culture, we provide a number of different solutions, and we actually call our solutions coaching enablement solutions. So it enables coaching conversations to happen and enables self-coaching to happen. So certainly with we have a solution called Mindset. It's a self-coaching tool, and we take people on their own a journey of self-discovery, and in there are self-reflection exercises, coaching exercises done digitally, and they're in there expecting people to capture their thoughts, their feelings, and then also their commitments to what they're going to do differently on the back of what they've learned about themselves. So that's number one. We've also got a solution of e-learning, which is helping leaders and managers to have the capability to have better coaching conversations. And then lastly, we've also currently developing our coaching solution that enables performance conversations, so goals, objectives, but all through the power of everyday conversation and feedback.
So
where our solutions are helping enable people to do those things that we've talked about already, and stop and reflect and
take action,
commit to make action, to take action, because it is all about results at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a good point you made at the end there, just to distinguish between performance coaching and other coaching. Like, is there a difference in your mind between those?
So for me, I talk about coaching being coaching, and you can have lots of different conversations, and it all depends on what the individual wants out of their coaching conversation. So you could be having a coaching conversation about somebody's well-being. You could be having a coaching conversation about the task that they have in hand, the job that they're doing. It could be about career, but for me, it's all conversation. Even if it's two people together, even if it's a group, a team, it is all about making a change, or making, having that sustainable behavior change at whatever level. So for me, I struggle when people go, oh, I'm an expert in performance coaching, or I'm an expert. To me, it's all coaching, and it's all about, the skills are very similar. The skills are the same. It's about building that rapport. It's about asking powerful questions. It's about listening, and it's about creating accountability in others to do something on the back of it.
Yeah. I love that, because I think people would sometimes hear coaching and go, oh, it's performance coaching. So it's like, a monthly performance review or whatever, quarterly reviews type of thing. But it's much broader than that. And one of the things you just described, something that we do a lot of, is just bringing people together in learning experiences to talk about like a specific challenge that everyone is well, and not even everyone. It could be one person facing a challenge, right? And a group of people listening to and co-creating a solution to that benefits the whole group, and that's coaching as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's really powerful coaching, because that's a group coaching each other, as opposed to somebody coming in, because I'm trying to get rid of the myth that it's just about one external coach coming in and coaching one person on the leadership team. This is a skill for everybody. And obviously there's different levels. We often talk about, everybody can cook, but we're not all professional chefs. There's different levels of capability of coaching. You've got your highly accredited coach who's been coaching for thousands of hours. And then you've got people who have got some basic but good quality coaching skills that are enough to take somebody forward. So for me, it's a life skill. It's a skill for everybody. And that's kind of the mission we're on, to, like I said, enable coaching conversations to happen every day.
So when you describe everything you've said so far, it's like, I love this kind of stuff. We obviously, do it at Curious Lion as well, but I seek it out myself, right? So I'm like 100% motivated to do it, but not everyone is like that, right? So we run into this issue and challenge at clients a lot. Like, not everyone wants to embrace everything we've talked about. So how are you thinking about that, intrinsic or maybe extrinsic motivation of the individual to embrace coaching?
So we very much preach about the power of the growth mindset. And then part of our mindset coaching solution, the topics in there, we've got 24 modules actually, and one of them is growth mindset. And we accredit Carol Dweck for all the great thinking that's gone behind it. But we talk about a growth mindset, a fixed mindset, but also a mixed mindset, because I don't believe you're always one or the other. There's often somewhere in the middle. And it's actually, so in our mindset coaching solution, it's so innovative because nobody else is doing anything like it, because it's actually getting to the heart of what's going on in people's minds here, which is exactly what you're talking about. This is people not wanting to learn, to grow, to develop. So if we can get them to actually do some of our modules, they'll recognize what's holding their mindset back, that are driving their behaviors every day. So like I said, we've got a growth mindset. We may have a positive attitude module. We've got things like imposter syndrome, all things that people maybe not always aware of, that are things that are holding them back through years and years of their environment, their upbringing, their culture. So we promote the development of a growth mindset, and for us, a learning culture is absolutely about that growth mindset.
Totally.
And a coaching culture is about helping people even more develop that growth mindset
Yeah.
and absolutely unlock their potential.
Yeah.
So it's all right feeling like you're happy to learn, but have you unlocked your potential? And I think that's where coaching really
Yeah.
does help people.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it does seem like at some point you have to get people to experience the process, the activity of coaching, and so that they can start to get that self-awareness, right? So there's a little like chicken and the egg in this. Like I'm just wondering, do you know what it sometimes I
Do you know what
grapple
you
with
mean?
like, yeah, just sort of like teaching. We do the same as well, right? Like, Carol Dweck, growth mindset. Like a lot of people can look at that and not and be like, okay, passively consume it. Okay, cool. But like to get them to actually experience it is the hard part, right?
So for me, that again is where our mindset modules come in. And that was where we started wanting to get coaching conversations out to the masses. It wasn't just transactional coaching conversations, taking somebody from A to B. It was actually about getting to the root of what's going on in somebody's mind, that's the blocker that's stopping them, to really get them to recognize the benefits of what could be. What could be. Now, people often ask me, Andrew, can everybody be coached? I get that question quite a lot.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is a great
I should
question.
have asked that.
And I know, and to be fair, I'm not sure I fully know the answer to that, because obviously I don't know everybody.
Yeah.
But I think if shown the power and the benefits of what could be for them, then I believe everybody can be coached. But that's me probably with my huge rose-coloured glasses about coaching. And it is about, I use the word hearts and minds. It's about winning, letting people see what could be their benefit. It's about them.
Yeah.
It's absolutely about them. Now, I do think some people are easier to coach than others, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, I just think the more and more we preach the benefits of coaching. And it's interesting because when people question coaching, there's so many myths about it, so many myths, but you often, I share to people, look, it's been happening in sport for years. They wouldn't dream of having teams of sports people running around without any level of coaching support.
Yeah,
I said
right.
there'd be chaos. I said this is about capturing and harnessing the coaching capability and getting people to think differently. And you can see people going, oh yeah, I've not really thought about it like that, because there seems to be thoughts that coaching's fluffy, or it's for somebody else
it's
to
like
do.
or a sign of weakness, like, oh,
a sign of a weakness.
Yeah.
As opposed to, this could take you from good to great. Let's go there.
Yeah. So I think we can maybe zoom up to the organizational level. I think another couple of factors that come in is, like you said, just getting people to experience it. It doesn't even have to be first person experiencing it. They can experience it through someone else and seeing the benefit of their colleagues, their peers, right? So that's one way I think that helps. And then also hiring for those kind of people, right? I think you can start there as well, and just getting the kind of people. I mean, I do that with my company. I'm sure you do too.
Definitely. And whenever I talk, if I'm on stage or at our conference, I'm talking about, it's our collective responsibility now to do something for today's employees. But not only that, this is about setting up for the future. This is expected now of our kids. They're working in a growth mindset environment versus when I was at school, where it was absolute telltale. They're being expected more and more to think for themselves, and they're expecting you not to walk into the workplace in 10 years time or whatever and then suddenly be treated like they know nothing. This is about harnessing the power of people's thoughts, capabilities. One of our team is a grad intern, so she's on her way back to university, and she is phenomenal. And she's grown so much in the year with us. She leads things for us. She shows so much initiative because she's absolutely tapped into, she believes in herself now. And when somebody starts to believe in themselves because they're experiencing coaching around them, they become unstoppable.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's phenomenal.
I love that. Believing in yourself, and it starts with you believing in them, right?
Definitely. And I think so. I think that's the beauty of being. So thinking like a coach. So if we ever do any coaching workshops, coaching capability workshops, people say, oh, we just want some coaching skills. And I'm like, no, we won't do that. We will not sell that to you. We will happily sell you coach mindset first, and then how to become a skill coach, because the skills bit are relatively not easy, but they're easier than changing your mindset.
Right, totally.
I need you to think like a coach before you're going to start acting like a coach. And that is the nut that we need to crack. Because once you think like a coach, you believe in the unlimited potential of other people. You believe that there's way more to them, and it's your role to help them see that.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Hey, it's your host, Andrew here. I wanted to take a second just to say that if you're enjoying this podcast, we would love it if you did a couple of things for us. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. It really allows us to grow the channel and reach a lot more people like you. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, take a moment to leave us a rating and review. It's a great way to give us some feedback and to tell the world what you think about this podcast. So whether you listen to it on YouTube or you listen to it as a podcast, if you take one of those actions, it would mean the world to me and my team. Thank you. And with that, right back to the show. So what other things, and you've got right up at the top of your website, there were 4 things that jumped out at me in sort of your intro to everything you guys do. Let me just list those off, and then you feel free to pick one of these or add something else, but sort of like to build out that mindset, right? You talk about authentic leaders, you talk about effective conversations, honest feedback, and then one you've already mentioned was trust. All of them just so key, and we could probably spend an entire episode on each of these. But yeah, anything there that's particularly like important for mindset. Yeah,
for me, I think, exactly to your point there, we could actually talk about all of those words you've picked out. So for me, honest feedback, I think coaching and feedback are kind of absolute hand in hand, and having the ability to not only give feedback but to also receive it, and being of the right mindset to receive it. And I think that coaching and feedback are great, and feedback does build trust as long as it's done in the right way, for the right reasons, having the right skills to do that. But it comes from a place of positivity, and you're wanting to support somebody to be better. And also expecting that feedback back in return. This isn't one way. This is, give me feedback. The best people ask for feedback. We did an article in our magazine on Elon Musk, how difficult it is for him to get feedback to do differently, because everybody's just going, oh, Elon, you're amazing. And he's like, okay, tell me what I'm not good at. And oh no, we can't, and he's like, that's my best feedback. That's where I learn from my blind spots. I need to know what I'm not doing well enough. And sometimes it's difficult to listen and difficult to hear, but actually it's those areas that really we can take forward, but not forgetting that we often talk about a 5-to-1 ratio of 5 really positives to 1 do differently will help somebody be put in the mindset to take on that do differently a lot more.
Oh, I like that.
Whereas some people pepper people with 5 negatives and don't give them any positives. Well, that's just going to go one way. That is not helpful. Telling somebody all the things they're doing wrong, they'll just lose their confidence.
Goes back to believing them, right? Like it's hard to come up with 5 things. You've really got to think about that person and really believe in them, and to make that effective. I always remember on my coaching qualification, one of the first things that really stuck in my mind when I was doing my qualification, that, like I said, was my sort of total epiphany moment, was when you're coaching somebody, you need to be of the mindset of having an unconditional positive regard for that other person. So it's unconditional. So no matter what you're going to tell me in our conversation, I'm not going to have judgment. My mind is just going to be absolutely clear of all thoughts, and I am just going to be here for you and present for you in our conversation, and believe that there is more to you in this conversation and beyond that. I love that. I had yesterday actually a very difficult performance conversation with someone on my team, and that was actually one of the things that got me through the conversation, was to say, look, this is serious, like but like unconditional positive regard. That's such a great way to say it. Is we believe in you. I said I believe in you, and we're going to help you do this. Like we've got the plan in place and all that, but it's about like just embracing that person can do this, and you want to support them.
Definitely. And I often say to people, so again, you know, when I'm out there preaching on my coaching culture soapbox, you know, I often say to people, particularly leaders and managers, if you feel that somebody in your team is not performing to what you want, look at yourself first. Look back at you before you start finding all the things wrong. Look at you. What have you done to enable that person to be the best you can be? What environment have you created to help them flourish? And if you can say you've done everything, then okay, this might not be working. But if you can think, actually, no, I haven't set them up for the most success, then start with you first.
Yeah, and we did that. That's such a great point. I realized something very specific that we could be doing better. So. Yeah, I want to go back to, feedback, cornerstone skill of all of this. I love that that's very front and center. I just want to go back to this authentic leaders part and authenticity, right? It's often like thrown around, like it's kind of a buzzword now. We at Curious Lion, we talk about bringing your whole self to work, and when we create work for clients, for creating it for the whole person, the whole human, at the sort of at the core of that business. What does it mean to you to be an authentic leader?
So, to your point, I often, but have been challenged recently, I often say you've got to be able to bring your whole self to work. And I've been challenged on that, and it's made me stop and think, because what I mean by saying bring your whole self and be authentically you, get rid of any work mask, you know, just be real, be vulnerable, be truthful, have fun, do the things that you would with your family and friends, you know, at work.
Yeah.
But some people have challenged me, and it's made me think, and definitely about all the human element, which is 100% correct. They've said, not bring the self to work, the amount of you that you want to bring. So it can be you choose what you want to bring. Whereas I'm saying not the opposite of that. I'm just saying, just bring you, just be you. Yeah, bring all of you, because there's so much energy wasted in trying to think about what to be at work versus what not to be at work. So I'm saying, so I've been challenged a few times on it, in terms of actually allow people to be who they want to be at work. Let them choose who their authentic self is, as long as it's their choice. Because when I talk about authentic leadership, I do talk about it is about human leadership. It's not about hierarchy, or it's just about being human. And it's not, you know, I often see we're just about to have a team of 20, and I see our team we're like a group of mates hanging out. And somebody joined us recently, one of the most recent recruits, and was really quite shocked at the level of lack of hierarchy and the level of camaraderie and how we're all in it together. You know, I have fun with, I create chaos through some of the fun.
I have a feeling you're going to say that.
I do. You know, it's like we have fun at work.
Yeah. We
have a laugh. We get the job done. We absolutely do. But we're our true selves. I was mortified when she said, you know, I can just see that. I think she was more or less implying that, Joe, there's no difference in you as CEO of the business to anybody else. And I'm like, that's exactly what we want. I said, the minute it changes, I said, I'm doing something wrong. I said, you know, people see me at my most vulnerable. They see me at my best. They see me when I'm focused, when I'm not focused. They see me as a human being, and I expect to see them as a human being. And they've got that permission to be that person. And I know that's what's really special about coaching culture, and that, you know, I want more and more organizations to recognize that, you know, you can still do all of that and be professional, but you can be professional by being fun and human.
Yeah. I think that challenge that you had is interesting. It's also made me just think of it more. It's more nuanced, right? It's like, it's just giving people permission to bring their full selves, but not requiring it, right? Like if you want to keep one part of you, you know, that private, like, that's fine, right? I think that's kind of that's a good takeaway for me there. So I love the culture that you described at your firm, because it sounds very similar to ours, and we're so intentional about that. And, you know, you and I were talking beforehand, like every time a new person joins, you sort of like, there's this state of flux, right? And you sort of like,
there's a shuffle. I call it the shuffle.
The shuffle, and you sort of see like how is it going to settle? And yeah, and it's one of the things I'm like, whenever I used to work at a startup and we were hiring like 20 people a week, and you could never give it time to settle. You never let the people assimilate into that culture. And so we could go down that path. Maybe I'll come back to that point, but I wanted to talk more about what you do at Coaching Culture. Like what are some of your favorite things where you put this stuff into practice with your own team?
Well, it's interesting because I think when we first started as a startup, it started as 2 of us, and then 3, then 4, then 5, and now we're 20. To start with, it was still authentic, and it was still building performance and feedback and trust and all those great things. But it wasn't asking lots of questions, or it was being really clear with direction. It was like, this is what we need to do. This is our vision. This is where we need to go. And obviously people were still empowered to bring their best self, but within the framework that we were creating at a startup level. Yeah. We started the business with a blank piece of paper and a pencil. That was 5 years ago. Whereas now as we're getting bigger, we're having to let go more and more and more and more and empower people. And one thing we do expect at Coaching Culture is for people to be prepared to learn and grow. It's kind of a non-negotiable. It's like if you are coming with a fixed mindset that is not going to change, you're not right. You're not right for us. It's literally if you see something that needs doing and you put your hand up, you go solve it. It's because we're still in that. We've created a fabulous business and we're going from strength to strength. But still, we talk about building the plane while flying it. Yeah. And that's what you do, don't you? When you're, I think 5 years, crikey, wow, this is a long time. But actually, in the growth of a business from zero, it's actually nothing. In the life cycle of a business. Totally. So, and we're only going kind of growing and growing. So we just continue to learn and grow, and we do. So we have something called culture codes. So we don't have values on a wall like a lot of organizations. We have culture codes, and that's the little nuances. So if you Googled the words culture deck, you would find some great big organizations who are moving from 5 values on a wall. We have trust, we have passion, we have drive, and it's like, whatever.
What does that even mean?
What does it even mean? So we've challenged that thinking, and it's more nuanced. So it's taken us a while to know what our culture is. What is our culture? Who are we? And obviously we set the tone, and it's kind of like then we recruit people to this culture. And so we do have a culture code called We Eat Our Own Dog Food.
I love it.
Now that's not, we expect anybody who's got a dog to bring their dog food in and sit there grimacing at work. It's we use our products.
Yeah.
We've got coaching enablement solutions. If we can't use them, then how can we expect other organizations to? So we started to really push up the use of our products, and we capture our conversations. We give feedback. We definitely give feedback. And it's done because with such positive intent. And some of our feedback is I said to one of my team recently, I said, that's making my eyes bleed. And she just howled laughing because she knew that, and then she looked and she was like, I think you're right. I can see what you mean. Let me go away and look at it again. And she came back with something that was amazing. But I mean, I would never have said that to somebody once over. I would have skirted around an issue and probably got something that was marginally better on the back of it. Right. She knew that I said it with such love.
Yeah, you built this trust, right? There's trust there, so you can say that. Yeah.
She howled laughing, and off she went and created something that was another level of brilliance. To be fair, so and we have such camaraderie. We're in it together, and what I love, I actually love our team. I literally, we look out for each other. If they know I'm having a bit of a tough time. Or busy, when they see Jo in busy mode, honestly, I'm showered with support and care and attention. How can we take this pressure off? Do you need a cup of tea? What? It's just such a fabulous feeling of support, and we're in it together. And we celebrate together. We're having a 5th birthday party in a 4 weeks time, and we're taking the afternoon off, and we're we're having a party for our 5 years because, you know, we're there because of every person in that room has done something special to get us to 5 years. Because I'll never forget, Andrew, the moment I started thinking about setting this business up with my business partner, and I'll never forget a conversation I had with a really, really great friend. What are you doing that for? Most startups fail within the first year. And I said, this one won't.
Yeah.
And she said, and bearing in mind, I'd never built a business before. And I said, this one won't. And she said, well, if they haven't gone in 1 year, they've definitely gone in 5.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've got the birthday cake on order, and we'll be there. We'll be there on our 5th birthday celebrating, and we'll be there on our 10th as well. So it's fabulous.
It's so cool, and there's so many similarities to how we're approaching things. And I've got a sort of related question. I just wanted to just again congratulate you and recognize the fact that culture that's built up, that almost 20-person team now, is reflective of those 20 people, right? That's where the culture stems from. The culture is the individual behavior of people on a day-to-day basis, not the slogans on the walls or anything like that. So
and also we've all bought into we have all sorts of funny little culture codes, but they represent who we are, and everybody kind of loves them, and they're a dynamic because obviously as we grow again, we might need new culture codes in there, but I don't even know how many we've got, 20-something, 25 culture codes, something like that, and people started repeating them. That's we want them to become part of our daily language because they mean something to us as a team. Yeah. And the culture really, like I said, we have that little shuffle when new people come in, and then it settles down, and then we shuffle again. But it's brilliant because we now know who will fit into our culture.
Yeah.
And not only that, we've had somebody here this week. She's been here 5 days. She was attracted to us through LinkedIn because she loved what we were saying about ourselves. So now it's the proof's in the pudding because we've now recruited her, and people seem to join us and they fold in. They just fold in because we've recruited the right person, and they're instantly enveloped in the coaching culture way of being, and that's brilliant. But equally, we've lost people along the way because we didn't fully know what our culture was, so we've recruited wrong, and that's not worked out. So we've not sat here saying every person's been a perfect match, because along the way we've lost a couple of people who didn't fit.
And it's recognizing that it's that full pipeline, and there also needs to be some period of assimilation, like you said earlier, when people, both sides, see is this a fit for me and for the business. And, so many similarities. I think this is one of the challenges we run into, right? And I'm curious how you approach this. So you and I can sit here, and a lot of people might say that run companies with thousands of employees, that that's all very good and well. You've only got 12 to 20 people. You can do this level of intentionality, right? When you're dealing with 1,000-person company and you've got this culture hasn't been as intentionally thought about until they bring you in, right? Where do you start? What is the most important thing to get started at a company of that size to start this process?
That is a fabulous question. So people often say, where do you start? I always say somewhere, which sounds, it could be a great answer or a total cop-out. It's, I'll start somewhere. Yeah. I could say start at the very top and get it clear. So we have a framework, and it's quite linear, but that's not how cultural change happens. It's not as linear. It's not step 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, we're there. But we do have a framework, and we do talk about getting, we would love to see more senior leadership at the very top visualize what a coaching culture could look like, what the culture needs to be. So I do love it when the very top of the organization really buy into this, and then they put it into their strategy, which is linked to budgets, resource, time allocation for great quality conversations. So, and then they start to help people build their capability along the way. So we've got a 7-point structure that we share. Equally, I also say, so I kind of can contradict myself here, because I also say, don't wait for the board to go and have a great quality conversation with your team. Don't wait you do not need to ask permission to have a conversation. So
Yeah.
don't wait.
Yeah.
Don't wait for that. Don't wait for having perfection in place. Start having conversations. So actually then the culture, can be bottom up, top down, and meet in the middle. And often it's the people in the middle who are making the most changes happen.
Managers,
so it's actually leaders and managers here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a whole raft of people who, and that's, I did that in my own teams. When I was a manager of teams, I had great quality conversations with them. That was my job to do that. Nobody had sent me on a coaching course. I didn't have any fancy software to capture the conversations. I had conversations and recognized through my own failings when I was doing it wrong, what actually was when it went right.
Yeah.
And it was coaching, so I know I'll never forget, there's two really critical career moments for me really early on. So in my young 20s, so a whole lot of years ago, so I had become the a manager of a team, and the team were way more experienced than me. And I was sort of, imposter syndrome shrouded in it. It was just like, there I was thinking, what have I done to get this role? These people know way more than me, and I now need to have all the answers. Oh no, I've only left university 3 or 4 years ago. How can I possibly have all the answers? And I remember working on a team, and I was just just typical me, getting on with people, building relationships. But I still thought I needed to know all the answers. So I had to come up with these solutions for a problem we had. And then in the end, I was like, oh, I haven't got any more suggestions. What do you think?
Yeah.
Well, why did I not ask that about 2 hours previously?
Outcome all the good answers. Yeah.
Oh, I was like, cringe, I should have done this. And I'll never forget that moment. And the other moment I'll never forget was waiting to give one of my team, being too nervous to give my team some feedback that I had bubbling away in my mind. So I was clearly expecting him to be a mind reader. And he wasn't. Right. He'd not mastered that skill. And waiting. So I waited months and months and months and months in his annual appraisal to give him some feedback.
Yeah.
And when I kind of peppered him with all this feedback that wasn't all great, and then took a breath, and I'd kind of relinquished myself of all these thoughts. My burdens. He just looked at me and he said, I am shocked to the core. And rather than me think, well, I just suddenly thought, that's all my fault. I have just done that. I held the mirror up to myself and thought, what have you just done? You will never do that ever again. And it was a massive learning for me. But I was one of those middle managers, learning from the error of my ways. I didn't have the luxury of going on coaching training courses to learn what I should do. But recognizing the power of asking great questions, giving feedback at the right time in the moment. And learn by my mistakes, and then recognise the value and harness the power of coaching conversations. So I'd love to say just get it all sorted from the top, but you know what, that could be like moving the Titanic away from the iceberg on some occasions. So literally everybody to start, even if they need to just go and find out how they can get some basic coaching skills. I always recommend a fabulous book by Michael Bungy-Stanier called The Coaching Habit. And I say, leaders and managers, get hold of that book. If you just have that book carried with you at all times, you'll have some great quality questions in your bank of questions to ask your team.
Oh, I love it. You stole my last question. I was going to ask you what books you recommend or reading now. So that was perfect. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this conversation and take some notes, because there's so much good advice here. I've been writing down the advice for people that have to do this, right? Anybody who's responsible for people development and enablement, getting leadership buy-in, that top-down and bottom-up meeting in the middle, and the importance of that manager role, the asking great questions. Krista Tippett, who does the On Being podcast, is just phenomenal at this, and writes about the power of questions, feedback. I mean, just being authentic, trust. This has been amazing. Like, you and I are like so on the same wavelength with this stuff, and you do such a great job of just describing this in a way that makes sense.
Oh, thank you, Andre. I really appreciate that feedback, because it's something that I'm so passionate about. And, the more people I can get to hear the power of coaching, to give it a go, and to really think about, getting people to think for themselves so they can really self-reflect and raise their own awareness and learn. And, we do some fabulous things at Coaching Culture, and we're really on this sort of movement, and we're gathering more and more people in our community, and it's fabulous. It's fabulous to be a part of. I feel really privileged to be a voice of it. Because obviously, like I said, I've got my little soapbox that I take around with me and jump on it and preach to anybody who'll listen, and also listen to the challenges as well, because I know it's not always easy, but it is possible, and I think that's the key message.
It's not always easy, but it is possible. I love that.
Definitely.
Jo, where can people go to find out more? What's the next step they should take?
Yeah, I think we provide a whole lot of resources for free. So people always love that, which is www.coachingculture.com, and that's to join our community. Joining our community is a great place to get access to conversations. Our magazine, we have a magazine that we send out every quarter, which is absolutely
very cool.
Brilliant. They
out.
get access to some of our events. We do conference. We've got awards this year. And then on LinkedIn, I love people connecting with me on LinkedIn. That's how we've met. So Jo Wright Coach on LinkedIn, as you would imagine, and join the conversation on LinkedIn, because I love having conversations there.
Yeah, you are very active on there. I can attest to that. Jo, thank you so much for spending the time with me today. This has been so much fun.
Thank you, Andrew. I've absolutely loved every minute. Thank you.
Hello. I hope you enjoyed that episode. It's Andrew again with a quick message. If you'd like to support the show, the best way to do that is to leave us ratings and reviews where you listened. If you're on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and feel free to leave a comment. We love hearing from our listeners and viewers. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please take the time to give us a rating and leave a review. Once again, we love hearing from our loyal listeners. If you're listening to this on Spotify, please hit the follow button to make sure that you don't miss new episodes as they come out. And as a reminder, this episode is sponsored by the Learning Culture Experience, a first of its kind cohort-based learning experience for learning professionals, in which you will join a community of 50 other innovative learning professionals designing and developing cohort learning experiences that you can roll out in your companies. To find out more about the program and when the next cohort is starting, check out curiouslion.cloud/experience. See you next week for another episode of the Learning Culture Podcast. Thank you for listening.